Hello, my name is Daniel. I'm 44 years old. I'm a junior at Temple, majoring in English and minoring in history. I decided to retire from my career in restaurant management and go back to school. I worked for the same company for a majority of 20 years. Having worked in restaurant management for as long as I did, I have definitely conducted more interviews than I've partaken in. With that said, during a time that I took a break from the company I worked at, I moved back to my wife and I's hometown, and my interview for the job that I held for the 3 years I was there was pretty interesting because it took place like 3 different times, really. I had the owner of the brewery and restaurant up in Danville, Pennsylvania, in central PA, to the place where I worked in South Philadelphia for Beer Week because they were trying to launch into the area. And I had a whole event for them, and the owner and another guy came down, and I wined and dined them, so to speak, and really had very little time to sit and talk with them because everything that possibly could go wrong went wrong that night. Obviously, as Murphy's Law would predict, I was running around the whole night taking care of problems. A few weeks later, I went to the beer distributor that we worked with for the event to return the tap handles, and in that time, my wife and I had decided to move back up to central PA. And when I handed my beer rep the tap handles, he stepped aside and he's like, Damien's right there, who was the owner of the brewery back home, or back up in central PA. So I talked to him for a couple minutes, and he was really curious about how we were able to pull in such high profit and volume in such a small space. And I gave him a little insight of where our success lied, and how we were able to achieve what we were to achieve. And we just had a nice little conversation, and I told him that I was going to be moving back that way pretty soon. And he gave me his card, wrote his personal cell phone number on the back of it, gave it to me, told me to give him a call when I moved to town, but assured me that he would not answer, but I would hear back from him. So a few months later, we moved up there, found a place to live. I called him, sure enough, he did not answer, but he did send me a text message, and I went in for the third part of what would end up being my interview for the job. So I met him at the brew pub for some lunch, and we sat down, and we talked for a couple minutes, and the server came along and, took our orders, and he's like, would you like a beer? And me, having worked in the restaurant industry for such a long time, especially in bars, this lots of times is a trap set up by managers to ask somebody if they want a beer at the interview. I declined, and we ordered our sandwiches, and the server left. I talked to the owner for a few minutes. He excused himself, came back with a glass of beer, and sat down. And he's like, I've been in the brewery all day, I need to have a beer, and sat there and gave me a look that said, are you really gonna make me sit here and drink a beer at lunch by myself? So I ordered a beer, and we sat and had a beer, and by the end of the conversation, I had realized it was decided that I was going to be brought onto the staff before I had even moved there. Reason being because he had talked to me about my experience and had actually seen me work in my environment, and wanted to bring a little bit of what he knew that I had to offer to the table in what he was doing, but in a small town environment, which he also knew that I understood because I grew up there. So in all, it turned out to be like a very positive experience because mainly I had the unique opportunity of being able to be witnessed in person, exploiting my strengths. So one of the things that I'm most concerned about is coming into changing fields is being able to present my strengths in an applicable way that is going to be accessible and understandable to someone who's a potential employer when I'm trying to explain to them what I can bring to the table, but they don't actually get to watch me work, because most of the other jobs that I have had throughout my professional career have been just based on my reputation and knowing people. I'm not going to be bringing that with me when I go into this new field, so that is something that I am a little bit concerned about. But thank you very much, everybody, for your time, and if there was anything I said that was useful, you're welcome. And if anybody has any helpful feedback, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a great day.